instructor. I'm a speechwriter and public speaking coach and communications consultant. I am also now a master's student in my second year of the professional communications program right here. So in short, I am very busy overall. I will be your host for today's International Ed Talks event here at the beautiful Royal Roads campus, which is situated on the traditional lands of the Lekwungen and Kosamson ancestors and families. And it is really with tremendous honor that we get to express our gratitude for these lands today using the very powerful and traditional practice of storytelling. What a gift for everybody, myself included. Now we have 5 storytellers here today. I will be the first. I will kick things off for you in a moment, but we also have Neha Pandey, who's over here in the room with us, Rochelle Padiachi, who's one of our brilliant speakers on Zoom somewhere, joining us from Eastern Canada, Najmul Chaudhry, who is also here with us, waiting in the wings, and last but certainly not least is Raghavan Paranchotri, who is also joining us via Zoom. We also have the great privilege of having Royal Roads President and Vice Chancellor, Philip Steenkamp, here with us today as well. And I'd like to welcome Philip to the stage now for an opening welcome. Philip.
So hello, everybody, and welcome to the annual International ED Talks. It's just so fabulous to be here today and to see all of you. And thanks very much, Anna, for that very kind introduction. I also want to note that our Vice President, Academic and Provost is here, Veronica Thompson, too. So welcome, Veronica. Good to see you. And thank you, Anna, for the land acknowledgement, too. And I, too, would like to acknowledge our presence here on the lands of the Kosamson and Lekwungen ancestors and families who have lived on these lands since time immemorial and whose connection to these lands continues through to this day. And we are deeply, deeply honored to be able to live and work on these lands each and every day. So it's great to see everyone here gathered to celebrate the power of international education. And a very special welcome to our Royal Road students who are going to be speaking today. I know it takes courage to stand up and share your journey with us, and we greatly value your experiences and your teachings. And I also want to thank Student Services for organizing this event each year, so thank you so much for all you do to pull this together. And it is really wonderful to be here in person at the Center of Dialogue. This is a really important event for our Royal Roads community. As a university, of course, we welcome students from any, what we say, any stage, any age, any place. And international students are a vibrant and vital part of our student body. In fact, at the convocation ceremony last week, I believe we welcomed students from 33 countries, from Australia right through to Zimbabwe, A to Z, which is amazing. And sharing those different perspectives and backgrounds from all over the world is one reason that our programs provide such enriching and perspective-shifting experiences. You know, learning with people from around the world helps each one of us to develop and also to embrace more informed opinions. And each and every one of you brings such gifts to the room and to Royal Roads University, your diversity in culture, and in intellect and in experience. And we truly, truly thank you for that. You may know that I came to Canada as an international student. I won't tell you how long ago, but it was many, many years ago. I came here from Botswana. And, you know, so I've had that experience too. And I can tell you that, you know, being on this campus and talking to people who come from all over the world is, you know, is such an exciting and inspiring part of my job. And I just think about the incredible opportunities that I was offered. Although at the time, international students were expected to go home immediately on completion of their studies. There was no such thing as a postgraduate work permit or anything like that. So I'm pleased to see that Canada has evolved And in fact, I had discussions a couple of weeks ago in Ottawa with the new Deputy Minister responsible for immigration, refugees, and citizenship, Chris Fox, who is looking at some major changes to the Canadian approach to immigration generally, but in particular to the way we welcome international students. The idea is actually, we shouldn't be putting 1,000 obstacles in front of people to get here. We should be welcoming people here and encouraging them to come and supporting them when they do come. So it's a work in progress, but I was deeply encouraged by those discussions about the change in attitude and about the commitment to look at issues like systemic racism in the immigration system as well, and some of the other challenges that we've seen. I know I'm going a bit off script here, but I thought you might want to know that. I know these experiences are absolutely life-changing. I know that you meet people you would never have met, and you take paths you never would have walked down either. And I know our speakers today are sharing their stories about the paths that they have chosen. So without further ado, I am happy to welcome you all to take part in these powerful, thought-provoking stories from our RRU International students. So thank you very much for the opportunity to come and offer a few welcoming remarks. And over to you, Anna. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, President Steenkamp. You are a fabulous speaker. You've made us all a little bit more nervous. It's okay, though. It's fine. We'll forgive you. But it really is an honor to have you both here with us supporting myself and these other speakers. But thank you to all of you as well for coming out. If you're watching the live stream, if you are just here in our in-person audience, this is, of course, celebrating International Education Week. So it's really important to recognize that being here and listening, but also being able to watch globally is really testament to how these brave speakers are bridging cultures and connecting people across the world. So thank you for being here and for your support as well. Now, I told you I was going to start the show, but I'm going to get a little closer. Is that okay? Sometimes when I get nervous, I like to pretend we're friends, so you're not strangers anymore. So I'll be here instead. So as a first-generation Canadian, daughter to two of the most resilient and resourceful human beings that I have ever known, I have spent my life trying to create connection and cultivate community. Does that feel familiar? In my work now, as a storyteller, I have worked with organizational leaders, I've worked with entrepreneurs, I have worked with regular, everyday people with really exciting stories to tell, authors, coaches, business leaders, and I know the power of storytelling to meet my goal of connecting people. So I thought I would tell you a little story today, just a little one, about how I became a storyteller. I was 7 years old, and I was showing some early giftedness in language arts, which is really just adult code for talks too much. Creates a scene. So my second grade teacher decided to suggest that I enter the Festival for the Performing Arts in the creative storytelling category. So the aim of this competition was for all of us second graders to create and perform an original story based on a single image with only 10 minutes to prepare. So there was a whole bunch of images all cut out from old magazines. They were glued to construction paper and placed face down on a table backstage. And as the timer started, we were each handed a picture. And as I went to turn mine over, expecting to see unicorns, children playing, balloons, cookies baking in an oven, I saw a picture of a woman who seemed very, very old, although I'm certain she was 10 years younger than I am now, probably. Her head was in her hands. She was looking very distressed. And in front of her was a pile of papers and receipts and an old, clunky-looking calculator. What was I supposed to do with this? What was I supposed to do with this? It's probably cut from like a 1989 edition of Chatelaine during tax time. So I panicked a little bit and I asked the supervising adults in the room for some help. And they said, well, we're not really supposed to help you, but we can confirm this is a woman who is struggling to do her taxes on an old accounting calculator. Great. It's very helpful. So I did the only thing I knew how to do with time ticking away. I imagined another character in the scene, just outside of the frame of the picture. A young 7-year-old girl, advanced in language arts perhaps, who was at the top of the stairs peering down at her mother. She really wanted to bake those cookies. And she really wanted to help. So you will know, if you've ever been an adult stressed out during tax season, that the way to speed things along is a precocious 7-year-old who is impatient and advanced in language arts. Nevertheless, my brave character scampered on down the stairs, and she offered her mother a suggestion. You read out the numbers, and I will type them into the accounting calculator. And it's clearly not a true story because her mother agreed happily, with no defense. And that's exactly what they did. They worked together, they got the taxes done, and then they went off into the kitchen and they baked cookies. And at the end of my story, I stood very, very proudly in the center of the stage, and I put my hands on my hips, and I said, the moral of this story is, everything is better when we work together. And that was the day I won my first gold medal in creative storytelling. It's the only gold medal I've ever won for storytelling. However, it's why I remember this story so clearly. Now, I wouldn't be able to articulate it for quite a number of years, but what I discovered that day was something really important. And that is the difference between an experience and a story. Because an experience is what is occurring. It's what we can observe. It's what's happening around us in a given picture. And sometimes it's even what happens to us in a given moment. But a story is what we make it mean. The lessons that we extract from our experience that help inform how we will move forward, what we will do next. Now, this truth, this realization didn't just inform probably a lot about my life, I think, looking back, and what I do now professionally. I actually credit it for saving my life. Because 23 years after I won that gold medal, I was in a terrifying car accident on my way home from work one night. In a matter of seconds, I was left with multiple injuries, concussion, panic attacks, debilitating anxiety, chronic pain, and a crushing 10-year-long depression that stripped me of every single thing I thought I knew about who I was and what I was going to do with my life. My physical health had deteriorated. My mental health was hanging on by a thread. The friends and coworkers I had come to rely on seemed to fade away. I was forced to give up a coveted management position in finance. I had nothing. And on my darkest days, when I would sit, head in my hands, and distressed, I would look up just outside the picture, and I would see the faces of my 2 daughters looking at me and wanting to help. And I had to ask myself, not just what does this story mean to me, what am I making it mean for them? What can I make it mean for them? And that is when I became a storyteller. Because storytellers don't just ask themselves, what does this experience mean to me? They ask themselves the deeper question, how can my story serve? How can my story serve? What lessons can I extract that can help another human being? And in particular, those that we don't at first know are listening or watching. This is the evolutionary role and function of story. Across all history, across all time, across all people. When we can learn from our past experiences and pass that wisdom on to help another person feel less alone in their struggle, to overcome a challenge they may not see coming. This is who we are. This is who we are. Long before we had institutions and international travel, we had stories. Right? And the good news is that makes all of us storytellers. It is our earliest form of human education. The earliest. You do not need to be advanced in language arts to become a storyteller. I promise you. You do not. We can be storytellers everywhere. Out there in the foyer, eating a cookie. In the parking lot after this event. Coffee shops, airports, workplaces, classrooms, and most especially in our own homes. We just have to remember that every experience, every single experience can be a story. Every story has the potential for a moral. And if you're ever struggling and you just can't find the lesson, I encourage you and welcome you to borrow mine. Because everything, I promise you, is always better when we work together. Thank you. I'll come back over here now so it's less disarming. That's better, more comfortable. Thank you for that, by the way. I am now so incredibly honored to introduce you to our second speaker of the day. She is a student in Royal Road's Masters in Intercultural and International Communication program. With her talk, "With Education, We Shall Overcome," here is the delightful Neha Pandey.
Good morning, everyone. So I remember sitting in a dark room, crying and thinking to myself, what do I do so this will not happen tomorrow? What am I doing wrong? Why am I so unlikable? This is a story of a young girl who was trying to fit in. I remember pre-elementary school being great. And then I entered the elementary school, all excited with my new pencil box and my new books and notebooks freshly covered in crisp brown paper, which still crinkled at places. I made new friends, and before I knew, I was a part of a big group. Sounds great, right? But there was a problem. It was that I was always an outcast. You see, in India, parents make sure that their children go to an English school because it's important for a brighter future. But that doesn't mean that every child knows how to speak in English. I didn't. And I did not know that it was a problem till I was being mocked at for my broken English. I tried harder to speak English even more. And so obviously, I was laughed at harder. And that became a vicious circle. I figured out maybe that was the only problem. Maybe if I work hard and become better, they'll stop. So I forced myself to read English storybooks, started with newspapers, and made sure that I referred to my bulky Oxford dictionary whenever I could not understand the meaning of any word. My English became better. So you would think the mocking stopped, right? It didn't. I couldn't understand what was wrong with me. I tried to understand the things my friends were mocking me for, but even that was confusing because it was never just one thing. Kids can be mean, you know, especially to other kids. I did not have anywhere else to go. I did not know that leaving the group was an option. You know, that group, it has become a part of my identity. I was trying really hard to belong. I could have talked to my parents. They have been extremely supportive throughout my life, but I didn't think that I could, not at that point of time. And I don't know why. All I could do was return from my school, tell my mother how was my day, and would make sure to not disclose the mean comments that were made during my day. Go to my room, and then just start crying behind the closed doors. But I didn't give up. I figured books could help, and they did. Books helped me a lot during this time. Reading autobiographies of people going through challenges in life or overcoming challenges helped me. It gave me a language for my own emotions. I learned it was okay to be different, to think differently, to feel, to be sensitive, to try, even if you look stupid. The most important part is you need to understand yourself. And it's okay to have your own language and your way to do it. It's okay to not know something. The important part is being willing to learn. Education has given me the importance to find out what I'm capable of and the freedom to choose who I want to be. My formal education has taken me to places, made me meet people, and helped me experience life, which I might not have been able to have otherwise. And I'm thankful to it wholeheartedly. Education is not a mere degree, but what I learned during and after the classroom. Education is finding myself and even questioning myself. And all these years, I finally became aware that I was still battling my childhood experiences. I had not healed, and the pain of that little girl was still there, affecting me after all these years. My education has helped me inculcate the understanding and accepting the fact that I was bullied as a child, that it was not my fault, and that I'm a good person with worth. It has also afforded me the empathy to understand that maybe my young friends at the time didn't know better. I'm still working on healing my inner child. The shame, the guilt, the fear it has left on me. I still live with the reminiscence of it. Childhood bullying can leave deep scars and recovery takes time. I always imagined bullying to be more physical, more visible. But now when I look back, it was more visceral. It was more emotional. I felt angry, but the fear of not being with my friends stopped me from leaving the group. I felt sad, so I cried, not being able to put my finger on the reason. But the worst part was the helplessness, the confusion, and not knowing why me. If any of you have gone through it, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you had to go through it. I really am. And I wish I could tell you that this will not happen with anyone in future. But that should not be a reason for us to still try to change it for other children in the world, right? Today, I feel that my education has given me the confidence to try and find out who I am and what I'm capable of. I'm still on the journey to become better. So after a professional life in academia and political research, presenting and publishing academic papers, having made a short film screened at Mumbai International Film Festival, here I am, pursuing my second master's at the Royal Roads University. Today I stand here, strongly supporting the fact that education should be easily accessible to everyone. Because I believe education has the power to help you overcome, if not all, many circumstances in your life. I say this because it really has been the beacon of hope in my life. Thank you so much.
Wow. Well done, you. That was beautiful. What an incredible example, truly, of how learning and relearning and questioning and challenging is really something all of us can do. Neha, I really, really am so grateful to you for sharing that story. And frankly, I hope children all over the world get a chance to hear it or hear from you someday. Now, next up, and coming to us all the way from Ontario, is a student in our Human Security and Peacebuilding program. With her talk, Knowledge, Stewardship, and the Human Rights Learner, I warmly welcome to our virtual stage the masterful Rochelle Padiachi. Rochelle.
Thank you, Anna, for that warm introduction. Good afternoon. I am a South African born. I'm a former refugee and a settler on the traditional lands of two treaties. These treaties have been signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the First Nations of the Williams Treaties. I come from a long and very diverse ancestry of people, where knowledge and wisdom of one's lineage is present in all ways of knowing and being, irrespective of time and space. A striking example of this fact can be observed within the interactions of everyday life, where oftentimes people greet one another by saying, Sawubona. This is an ancient isiZulu greeting, meaning we see you. Not I see you, but we see you. This beautiful word not only represents an acknowledgement of one's physical entrance into a space, but their presence as part of a lineage and ancestry that is carried with you as you walk through the world. It not only recognizes the physical person, but the interconnection between one's humanity and another's. More intrinsically, I think it allows us to consider the limitless possibilities and potential of this seeing of one another. So to the in-person audience and those connected virtually, I say to you, Sawubona. For as long as I can remember, the fact of my difference in one form or the other has intrinsically shaped my human experience and my aspirations toward learning. My mother left South Africa in 1987, 2 days before Christmas, with 2 little girls, and ventured across an ocean to seek amnesty so that we could realize our limitless potential as young women, beyond any confines of oppressive and imposing socially constructed identities. Now, to this day, I carry that beautiful intention with me in all that I do. When I finally reached the opportunity to enter graduate studies and ready to embark upon the next leg of my journey of learning, I was surprised to discover that I felt something was missing. For some strange reason, I felt at odds with myself. I felt displaced at the fact that for so long, I had been focused and driven to engage in acquiring as much knowledge as I could at as high a degree of excellence as possible, all the while never having to intentionally ground myself as a learner. I realized that there isn't a lot of grounding of the person or the human being before one embarks upon the acquirement of knowledge, and that there aren't many spaces that bridge one's formal academic learning with the wisdom, teachings, the knowledges cultivated within one's community, family, mentoring, or any other trusted relationships. For many, including myself, the wisdom and knowledges and guidance received in these spaces play a pivotal role in the development of the whole person. So before I took the next step forward, I wanted to find a way to ground my intention toward my learning, past, present, and future. The Human Rights Scholar's Acknowledgement builds on a learner's personal declaration toward humility and responsibility in the acquirement and stewardship of knowledge. Knowledge that is often connected to the trauma, but more importantly, the resilience of the oppressed. It challenges the learner to be introspective, and in doing so, it asks them to make connections to the wisdom, teachings, and tenets present within their very own communities and lived experiences. The Human Rights Scholars Acknowledgement aims to foster greater critical consciousness within the human rights learner by framing an essential linkage between a learner of human rights and a learner of humanity. It allows an entry point for the learner into critically conscious spaces of learning. And from a wisdom teachings perspective, we understand that learning spaces are sacred spaces, and within sacred spaces, transformation occurs. The Human Rights Scholars Acknowledgement. The human rights scholar acknowledges with the utmost respect that this field of knowledge is premised on the lived experiences, traumas, and continued resilience of the oppressed. The human rights scholar steps forward on a journey of unlearning, which carries a deep commitment and responsibility to ameliorating and eliminating oppression and subjugation in all its forms. With humility, respect, and an understanding of the interconnected nature of all beings, the human rights scholar aspires to purposefully engage in transformative learning that advocates the shared and common humanity of all. So you may be wondering how this all connects to the idea of international education. International education and academic partnerships revitalize a common practice throughout our history, our many histories, where people, knowledges, wisdom, ideas, and innovation converged within these sacred spaces of learning. The potential for new ways of thinking and knowing and being were considered and applied, elevating the learner toward active change-making within any discipline. This convergence of our diverse worlds revitalize who we really are and what we are truly capable through this being of one another. Within the Human Security and Peacebuilding Program, I have been able to use this acknowledgement and grounding as a strong basis to pull those wisdoms I am so blessed to carry into my learning, to truly connect to related concepts such as the freedom from fear and freedom from want, critical capacity building, and the essence of a human-centered approach within the discipline itself, the very nature of our interconnectedness. Within any respective discipline, there are always a human-centered connection to the ideas we cultivate, to the projects we attempt to innovate, and the intention of human-centered design we wish to uphold. Toward this fact, grounding our practice in situating the importance of knowledge stewardship over knowledge ownership allows for a broader range of possibility, translations, sustainable outcomes, and very necessary conversations to manifest. The Human Rights Scholars Acknowledgement opens the possibility to shift entrenched paradigms within any discipline by challenging our propensity toward imperializing knowledge for outcome, as opposed to pushing back at complicity through learning that is grounded in humility, respect, and revitalizing the wisdoms and knowledges that nurture not just what we learn, but how we learn it. Where the acquirement of knowledge is not just framed through a logic of power, but through the breath of transformative stewardship. I'd like to thank Royal Roads and all of you for inviting me into this space of learning, the sacred space of learning. Thank you, and Salaga Shlif, stay well.
Thank you, Rochelle. Thanks for zooming in to be with us today and for your powerful talk. And also, I think, for the beautiful reminder of the sacredness of these learning spaces that we inhabit. I think that's a really lovely reminder. So thank you so much for your brilliance and your story. We most certainly see you. Absolutely. Next on stage and back here in our space with us is a student in Royal Roads MBA program. With his talk, My Inflection Point, I am pleased to introduce you to the very wise Najmul Chaudhry.
Thank you, Anna. It was mid-January 2021. I was lying on the office floor in terrible pain. I had just returned to the office after 14 months of working from home, and I was excited to be back. But then I suffered a lumbar strain attack. It took me 4 weeks to get back my strength. And during those weeks, I kept thinking about what my life goal was. I was enjoying a great salary, all the status and recognition, working as the executive vice president for one of the largest banks in Bangladesh, living in a big apartment with my wonderful wife and kids, and enjoying the finer things in life. I was so accustomed to this lifestyle and felt that it was too late to give it up and risk losing everything that I have built over the years to pursue a new career or ambition. Being in my 40s, I came to a point in life where I was questioning a lot of things. I was bored of working in a busy city, the long commute, daily grind, and the everyday mundanity of it all made me question what purpose it brought to my life. Oops, sorry. I felt I just existed in a robotic sense, in a job that brought me no joy. I remember sitting at my desk and thinking, is this it? Will I just work, pay my bills and die? And one day, I decided to make a change. In the last week of March, I resigned from my job. Initially, I did not have any plan, just wanted to explore and experiment. I went to a travel village in my hometown and observed the artisans building their crafts and how happy they seemed. I started helping my wife, who was running a successful chef, training and catering business. I helped her venturing into a new business, making artisanal, handmade chocolate. It was an exciting time with my years of marketing knowledge and skills. In a few months, we managed to earn a name for her chocolates. And then my father-in-law, with whom I was very close, got COVID and passed away in 2 weeks. The death of my father-in-law changed my life and taught me a lot of lessons. Swallowed by grief, I learned about the brutality of loss. But I also knew that when life knocks you down on the floor, you can pick yourself up and move forward. I realized I can choose my reaction to every situation. I can find the best antidote to despair is action. The first thing that came to my mind was to move to a new country, as it would be like a long holiday. My wife and I always wanted to travel long term, and we had been lucky enough to enjoy at least 2 to 3 weeks of holiday every year. But it was never enough, and we always felt really deflated when we came back. It was more than just having the holiday blues. Travel was something we constantly thought about. So I decided to amp up my skills by returning to university, which is the best place to meet exciting people. While researching for a business school, I came across the vision of railroads and was moved by the slogan, inspiring people with the courage to transform the world. At any stage, at any age, and at any place of the world. I immediately realized this was my true place to be, to embark on a new journey with this institution to explore my life's purpose. And today, here I am, studying for my MBA. My wife is working as a chef for one of the finest dining establishments in this scenic city. And my 10-year-old son, just 2 weeks back, was selected by his school to deliver the welcome speech on Remembrance Day. Now I spend much of my time with my 3-year-old daughter. I volunteer my time in the community and take care of senior citizens with book reading, walking, and helping them in their daily chores. These are the things I never would have done had I stayed in my corporate job in Bangladesh. I realized we all are conditioned to work, pay the mortgage, and live a normal life. But I think we owe it to ourselves to make our lives as extraordinary as possible. It's good to unplug from the system from time to time. A few years out of your whole life is nothing compared to a lifetime of regret if you decide not to explore new possibilities. For me, it was the greatest gift I could give to myself. Point of inflection, life's what's now moments, frequently emerge across our professional and personal lives. They can arise from difficulty, like when we are forced to deal with a sudden illness, maybe to lose a beloved one unexpectedly, or perhaps when we decide to move to a new country, leaving our significantly successful career and family. Whatever the catalyst, points of transition feel threatening, especially when our identity and self-direction are called into question. We feel like we hit an impasse and are unsure how to proceed, ranging from avoiding the problem by retreating or postponing our knee-jerk pivots or searching for quick fixes. Examining our first reaction to destabilizing change invites us to explore the possibilities beyond our initial impulse. This requires having the humility to recognize that even the most well-trained and talented among us can become unsure, unsettled, and reactive when operating in unfamiliar terrain. Developing a practice of pausing to regulate, resource, and reorient before we respond can counteract the threat response and help us to be more curious and creative in the face of what now moments, even when we are not sure what might come next. I'm on a quest to find my life's purpose, which is still a work in progress. but I can say without a doubt that I do not regret leaving behind the career and safety of my life in Bangladesh. To end, I shared this quote from David Brooks. Success leads to the greatest failure, which is arrogance and pride. Failure can lead to the greatest success, which is humility and learning. In order to fulfill yourself, you have to forget yourself. In order to find yourself, you have to lose yourself. And that is exactly what I have done. I decided to lose myself in order to find myself again. Thank you, everyone.
Literally, and figuratively, a mic drop moment there, Najmiel. Well done. We're so grateful that you lost yourself and found yourself here. That is for darn sure. Thank you so much for that. I do think you have scooped up my notes along with yours, so I will do my very best to introduce our last speaker of the day. Thank you. Who is also actually from our MBA program and is joining us via Zoom. With his talk, Flying Through Turbulence, a Pilot's View of Life, here is the dynamic and inspiring Raghavan Paranchotri.
Thank you, Anna. Hello, everybody. I've got a story to tell, or maybe a few, all jumbled up together. I'd say from about 6 years of age, I was fascinated by planes, and I even dreamt of being a pilot, flying through the clouds. When I was 10 years old, I had my first opportunity to travel on a plane. The joy of watching the clouds through the windows was surreal. It was as if I could touch the fluffy cotton balls floating around in space. My mom, my younger sister, and I were on a jet plane from war-torn Sri Lanka to find peace in India. And of course, to join my older sister and brother who had already arrived there months before. In 1983, the year before we moved to India, I was an unsuspecting, joyous child who loved to play outside on the streets with my friends in Jaffna, Sri Lanka. We did crazy things. We climbed trees, we jumped into pools, we did so many things. But I was completely oblivious to a brewing tension between the country's military and the militant Tamil youth fighting for separation. One day, after playing with my friends, I skipped home happily and started hopping up the stairs. Midway through my joyous hop, I felt the earth shake underneath. A military tanker had just shot at a church around the block, causing thunderous sounds and earthquake-like vibrations. I lost control, and I was Humpty Dumpty rolling down the stairs. On the darker side, though, a civil war had broken out in Sri Lanka. Interestingly, within weeks, I got used to sleeping with sounds of gunfire, nonstop gunfire. Over the next few months, I saw planes, several of them. They'd zoom past at low altitude, and when they went off site, I would hear a massive bang. Kaboom, an aerial bomb deployed to the devastation of some unsuspecting civilians. By the time I was 10, my parents had decided that leaving Sri Lanka was going to be best for their children. Their first choice for a new home was India. And the journey to India was my first ever plane ride. It was a rainy day, and the short flight rather, from Colombo, Sri Lanka to Trichy, India, took longer than it should have because of bad weather. And that's when I understood what turbulence was. The small craft we were in bounced about in space. I must say I was torn between joy and fear. The joy of a roller coaster ride versus the fear of falling down to earth. Needless to say, I landed safely in Trichy as a Sri Lankan Tamil, starting a new life in a new country. Though Tamil was the spoken language in my new home, the local dialect seemed different. The accents were different too. And then the phrases I would use to articulate my thoughts were not in alignment with local lingo. For example, when I said I was getting ready to go outside in my dialect, it would mean that I was going to the toilet in the local lingo. As you can imagine, I was the joke among my peers. Young kids were always mean to their peers. Yet, the younger me survived the insults, partly because I thought, hey, I've seen war. I've seen people die on the streets. Meager differences in dialects are not the least of my worries. And most importantly, I've never cared to worry about things that I had no control over. And I must say that perspective is perhaps an outcome of my mother letting me and my siblings face the world and ref out at a young age. Though I'm not sure if she did it by choice or by circumstance. Nonetheless, it certainly helped me look at the big picture all the time and have a positive perspective. A decade passed and I became a naturalized local Indian Tamil. By this time, my mother had moved out to Canada and had sponsored me and my dad to join in Canada. I, my three siblings, and my parents had nearly a decade of constant separation because of war and turbulence, despite trying our best to be together. My dad had to be in Sri Lanka due to unavoidable circumstances. My parents by then had sent my elder sister to Canada when she was a teen. My mother joined her a couple of years later. My brother was still in India, but in a city 500 kilometers away from me. And my younger sister, she was in limbo land, but in the comfort of friends in Malaysia. These were times before cell phones, let alone digital communication apps like WhatsApp or Messenger. So for me to talk to my family, I would write snail mail and wait for a couple of weeks for them to call me at a local public use phone number. Yeah, it wasn't easy. It was a turbulent few years before we managed to get back together as a family at the end of 1993, right here in fabulous Canada. 2 years later, united as a family, safe from war and persecution, I ventured on to pursue my childhood dream of flying a plane. I signed up for a tough program at Seneca College in Toronto, managed to beat 1,400 others to join the prestigious pre-aviation and flight technology program. I was among 140 selected students. The program was probably intentionally designed to seek the best students. The second semester would only see 70 students enter it, and after 2 semesters, only 33 students would make it to the aviation and flight technology program, where you would actually learn to go to ground school and start flying lessons. Turbulence struck again. At the end of the second semester, I was student number 34. And you were only allowed one shot at the program at that time due to its high demand. Life went on. Several unwilling attempts at numerous courses, and years later, I went on to do many unexpected things in life, from becoming a radio television personality who championed youth mental health, to director of public relations at a media group who co-chaired Canada's first ever hybrid digital radio programming. Opportunities further opened up. I traveled with the Canadian Prime Minister on a significant bilateral relationship tour between Canada and India. I even went to the APEC summit on that tour and stopped at several cities around the world. A few years later, I even ran for federal office, twice might I add, both attempts falling short by very small margins because of things outside of my control. Each journey had its share of turbulence, but I'm richer for the experiences. I must say, interestingly, I've had the joy of experiencing the dawn and dusk from perhaps 30,000 feet up in the sky in several countries, all from the cockpit of Royal Canadian Air Force 01, the Canadian Prime Minister's secure aircraft. the Canadian version of Air Force One, if you will. Funnily, I've even jumped off of a plane solo from 13,000 feet just for the thrill of it. But I've never sat in the pilot's seat to date. It's not by choice, but by circumstance. My dream to be a pilot is still alive. Incidentally, flying through life and all its turbulences has been invigorating enough that I feel like I'm already living my dream. From peace and love to war and separation and a plethora of other experiences, life has been like a Cessna 150 caught in incessant turbulence. That said, while my story may have highlighted several life changes or challenges, my message is to the contrary. To me, life is all about perspective. My perspective has always been that there is a positive angle to everything that happens to us. And I've been able to see the silver lining in each turbulence-causing dark cloud. Things happen, and that's how life goes. We're the ones deciding whether they're good or bad. I choose good, always. It is that perspective that is helping me see tomorrow as a new day to look forward to, which may still be written with more turbulence, but spreading our wings and flying through it all is what I think life is all about. Thank you.
Are we all just going to listen for the pilot's voice on every airline forever and hope and pray? Raghavan, thank you so much for sharing that incredible story. So uplifting and a beautiful way to end today's event. Thank you to everybody for sharing this space with us. It really means a lot for you to be here. These storytellers have worked incredibly hard, and to have a real audience that really soaks in that story is pretty profound. So thank you so much, all of you, for your attendance. And to the student engagement team, Sherilyn and Prapti, we couldn't leave this floor today without saying a big thank you to you for all your help and support. And that's it. On with your day. And if you are wondering what the goal of these events are, or if you're still thinking about what you took from it, just know that whatever you came for, you will receive, and you may not know what that is yet. So just keep on thinking. Have a great day.